welcome back to another episode of New Patients Now. My name is Flint, your host, as always. And today, that you are getting this is going live onto the interwebs, is August 27th. It's my sister's birthday, so happy birthday to Annabelle. Congrats to you. You are 27 on Golden Year. It's the Golden Year. Is this the Golden Year episode? Unfortunately, no. I should have thought of that beforehand, but it's not. Actually, have something very much different that we're going to talk about today, but I'm super excited. And, leading into September, this is a month that across the industry typically leads to a little bit of a production dip. And so I wanted to get this out this week because, well, one of two reasons. I have a really exciting episode that I think you guys are going to like a lot coming next week, or on September 4th, with a very special guest that we may or may not have released at this point, but super excited about that. I actually have Dr. Bill Dorfman, the most famous dentist in probably the entire world, was gracious enough to come on the show. So check that out next week. But today, as we lead into September, which is a historically low production month, we're going to do something a little bit different. And I was coming in today and I had a few things I wanted to talk about. And it's like, well, how do we kind of put a bow on this in a way that will be memorable for you and one that you can come back to every single year at this time to remind yourself of this? And so I was like, September. Okay, so S's, trying to think of alliterations, and it hit me. It's like, okay, today we're going to talk about how to avoid and not to commit the 7 deadly sins of September. Okay, so September can be a production lull for you if you commit these 7 sins, but if you know what they are and you know how to avoid them and not to commit them, you can actually have a very productive September, which is going to lead you into a strong fourth quarter of the year and finish out the year strong. And so I got 7 things for you today. We're going to go through these one by one and give you a little thing that you can execute on and do differently today to change what you're doing and ultimately have a better month in September. And if you're listening to this and it's after September, well, great news. You're going to be able to use this information next September, and you can still use it today. It doesn't matter if it's like January 4th when you're actually watching or listening to this. You can actually apply all these today. They're just you got to be hyper aware of these in those times where we do see typical dips. So, number 1, all right, what are the 7 deadly sins? All right, well, they are sloth, gluttony, pride, greed, envy, wrath, and lust. So you may be asking yourself, well, how does all of that have anything to do with September? Well, let's walk through them one by one. You see, depending on when you're watching or listening to this, you may be in a stage. So let's talk about what sloth is. It's essentially like laziness. So when I think sloth, I think someone who is not doing the things that they kind of know that they're supposed to be doing, but because they're putting it off, it's taking longer than it needs to. Right? This can also be, I think, displayed well with Parkinson's law. So Parkinson's law states that the time given to a task, right, that task will expand to fill the time. So if you, for example, have all of September to hit a production number, and all you think about all month is how we have all month to hit the number, well, all of a sudden, it's the end of the month and we're not close because we haven't been thinking about the thing we have to do today. So what do you need to do today to avoid the deadly sin of sloth, of laziness, of procrastination in your practice? You need to start right now. What is the daily, weekly, and monthly target for production that needs to happen in the practice? And are we consistently focusing on that? Or are we allowing the fact that last month was a good month, or we're riding on a high for maybe the end of August right now, and that's just, I don't know, that'll probably happen as we go forward, right? Well, that's not necessarily true. So we have to be intentional every single day about what's the production target, what is the current production that's scheduled, what is our gap, and are we intentionally working to fix that and fill that gap ultimately, right? And so we do a lot of trainings around how to make sure we have that system in place, but ultimately, other than not having a system to do it, most of the time it's just because we are assuming we're going to be able to accomplish something over this longer period of time of the whole month. And we don't focus on what needs to happen in like the right here, right now. Okay. So that is sloth. It's avoiding the coasting behavior. All right. Okay. Number 2, gluttony. So the deadly sin of gluttony. So this is like overindulgence. In the Bible, you see it's like consumption, right? They actually used to, like back in the day, people used to die and they'd be like, well, what'd they die from? They died from the consumption. So like literally, I think when they had unexplained deaths around essentially like people who are not healthy, they're like, well, hey, he died of the consumption. Well, it's like basically he just ate himself and drank himself to death, right? Which unfortunately people still do today. They just have like real, scientific reasoning for it. So gluttony is consumption. So if we're approaching a month that is typically lower in production, what should you not do in that month? What should you not do in a month where you might not produce as much as you typically would? Well, you probably shouldn't go buy and consume a bunch of unnecessary things. So like September should not be in the pursuit of good cash flow, right? And we did an episode on cash flow about a month or so ago. Like you would not want to make a bunch of frivolous purchases and overspend in this month. You actually would try and purposefully avoid it. You would say, hey, if the statistics say this, number 1, focus on the here and now, avoid the sloth. And number 2, we're not going to make unnecessary purchases that actually aren't going to drive to the ultimate goal that we're trying to do here. Okay. So that's gluttony. Do not overconsume. Okay. Because again, we're getting in the fourth quarter. So if you do that now and then you don't have the money to make the investments or the things at the end of the year, right, then you put yourself in a tight crunch and you're better off not doing it. Okay. All right. Number 3, pride. So pride is interesting. Pride is like, hey, it's August 27th. We're having a pretty good year. We're almost, 8 full months through the year. We're actually doing really well. So, I know September might be a slow month for you people, but it's not a slow month for us because we're having a great year. So September is obviously going to be the same for us because I can look at the schedule and there's people booked on the schedule. Well, if that's the way you look at it, like pride is basically assuming that you are somehow superior or different than everybody else without real, evidence, I think would be the word. And it is often the downfall, right? And it's a bigger issue for men. So if you're a man and you're a doctor and you're listening to this or watching this, right, it's a bigger issue for you. Like just the reality is women have a gift of not having this issue of pride as bad as we do. So you have to be doubly aware of this. If you're having a great first eight months of the year and you just think because things are going well today, that means things are going to go well tomorrow, that is not how it works. You cannot allow that sense of pride and that sense of just assuming things are going to continue to be good, right? There's a difference between positivity, right, and optimism and being prideful, right? So prideful is thinking that patients should show up, are going to show up, should buy everything that you offer them, and things aren't going to get in the way because for some reason coming to your office is the most important thing in their life. Just friendly reminder again. If anything, your coming to your office might be like the thing they would like to do the least that week. And that is not a negative thing on you. That is just how human beings operate, right? So if you act from a position of pride, you don't actually acknowledge the human nature of the person. So the patient who is the person who comes in, who pays for the treatment, pays for everything in the office, pays for everything in your life, right? Like they're the best people you could possibly imagine. So do not operate in a sense of pride towards them because they can also feel that. That's just not good. Okay. All right. And pride would also say, September has been bad the last 3 years, but I haven't taken the time to dig into why because it's not a me problem. It can't possibly have anything to do with what I'm doing wrong or the things I'm not being intentional about or the things that I'm not leading my team to do appropriately or whatever it is, right? So pride would be, I say September is typically a low production month. And you say, I don't think that happens here. but you don't actually go look. That would be pride creeping in. And you want to avoid that. You want to stay curious about these things. And you want to say, okay, well, is that true for me? And look back and actually go back and say, okay, well, about last year, the year before, the year before. So in those years, how did September produce compared to the rest of the year? Was it a good month? Was it a bad month? Because even if for you it is a good month, typically for whatever reason, there's probably another month in the year that's consistently low that you were unaware of. But you could say, well, Flint, you're wrong. September's not low for me. Well, that would be the prideful way to go about that. And you'd actually miss the lesson that maybe your September isn't September. It's like when I have a conversation and I'm talking to a group of doctors and a lot of them are dentists. And then you have like this cosmetic surgeon and a med spa owner and a chiropractor. And I use a dental example, and the med spa and the chiro and the cosmetic surgeon, they all listen to it as if it doesn't apply to them. Okay. That is pride. It is not accurate thinking. So if the advice is you should make sure that a new patient who wants your services should have as little friction as possible between their interest in walking through the front door, and I use the example of, I don't know, a hygienist or something as whatever the friction is, and you don't listen to that because, well, I don't have hygienists in my practice. Well, that's your pride. That's an inaccurate way of thinking. And you are committing that sin of pride. Okay. All right. That's enough on pride. It only gets men in trouble like all the time. So I could do a whole episode actually on that and all the things that could possibly go wrong with that, but I promised you all 7. So we're gonna do all 7. All right. Number 4, greed. Greed is going to show itself because you're probably not going to look at this and say, I'm not greedy. I only offer what the patient needs or whatever. Right. And I hope that that's true. And I think that it is. And we prefer to work with people where that is the case. But at the end of the day, like greed is going to manifest in like, God, what's the word I'm looking for? Not urgency, because urgency can be good. It's not scarcity, because scarcity can be good. It's really this like desperation. Okay. So imagine you get to maybe you're, I don't know, 3 weeks into the month, right? And you realize, well, I was a little prideful and I was a little slothful and I thought this was just going to work out, but I didn't do the things that was required to get us there. And now you're in a crunch and you have like 10 days to make up for being pretty significantly behind the production target for the month. Okay. Well, how does that greed manifest and how can you be mindful of it? Because it might not just show up for you. It might show up for people on the team. It might show up for your associate doctor. It shows up like this. It is, I am presenting the case to the patient, but if you were to watch me do it, and I talk, with our sales team, it's super easy for me to see it. Like if they're at the end of the month and they're not doing what they need to do, and they start to say some things that give off a little air of like desperation because they want to hit their number. It's like, oof, did you feel how uncomfortable that was? And you're going to do the same thing. You're going to present to the patient, but you're going to it's going to feel from that third party perspective like, oh, wow, this is a little uncomfortable. You might not be pushy, but there's this sense of desperation that comes off of you that actually deteriorates trust with the patient. It may actually turn away someone who would have otherwise said yes because you're not treating it as you would any other case, right? So being able to avoid that is the key because, again, it's not going to show up in over-diagnosing a patient, I hope. And if that's you and it manifests itself for you in the way of, I'm going to over-diagnose the patient with things they don't need, well, shame on you. Do me a favor and don't listen to the show anymore because I'm not interested in helping you. But if you're not that person, which I believe if you're watching this, you want to do better for your patients, you want to do better in your practice, right? And you can do both. Then it's going to show up in this unintentional way, right? But that can get confused sometimes. And you could also make the mistake of saying, I don't want to be greedy, So I'm not going to offer the best solution to the patient. See, that's also wrong. Now, it may show up in a different way. See, in a good month, in a different month of the year, and I wasn't going to say this, but I think it's important. You may be so far on the other side that you're like so much trying not to be greedy or seem greedy or whatever, that you actually don't present the best possible service, solution, treatment for the patient because of some assumption you have about their socioeconomic state and what they can afford, right? Well, technically, that's a little prideful of you. So by not trying to be greedy, you may actually be committing one of these other deadly sins, which is kind of an interesting way to think about it, right? Like, whose choice should it be when there's two options? One is more expensive and is better. The other is less expensive, will get the job done, but not as good. Who should make that choice? If you believe as a clinician that both could get the job done, one is better, will last longer, whatever, and one will get the job done, but there are some things that make this not as good as this. By not presenting the best one, you're actually hurting the patient because it's their choice. You just can't be like, oh, do this one, because if you start with the lower priced solution and then they say yes, and then you offer the more expensive, well, then you lose trust because they think you're trying to upsell them immediately after they say yes. So, but again, another topic for another day. All right. So far we have sloth, we have gluttony, we have pride, we have greed, and now that takes us to envy, right? And this is interesting, right? Well, how does that show up? Okay. Well, it shows up like this. One of my favorite things that people say is, you talk about getting new patients now. I was like, yeah, I want new patients, but I really just want the good ones, I just want the good patients like that other person has. I want more patients like this person has. Okay, so you become envious of what this other doctor, in theory, may have. So what does that do to you? Well, it blinds you to maybe what they're doing to deserve it, number one. And number two, it leads to you not giving the appropriate energy, attention, effort, engagement, enthusiasm, you name it, to the patients who you do have. So when we have this, the grass is always greener on the other side, I want what they have, right? It also comes with this, like, it's not a disdain, but it's like a disrespect and devaluing of what you do have, right? So in doing that, you're going to miss opportunities. You're going to have patients who can feel that coming off of you, right? And all that time you spend wishing you had the patients that somebody else had could be the time that you're actually doing something productive with the patients that you have, the team members you have, you name it. And this can extend beyond patients. It could be team members you have. It could be you name it, right? This is how this can manifest, is if it's not going your way, you spend more time envying what other people have and less time focusing on your own situation. Okay, so envy. Okay, right now, again, I'm sharing these why, so you can identify and avoid. Identify and avoid. See them happening in you, in others, and be like, ooh, wait, no, Flint told me not to do that, so I should stop. Okay. On the note of team members, the sixth deadly sin is wrath. So how does wrath show up? Well, wrath shows up in you taking it out on your team. So you are doing something, right? So your team is a reflection of you, always and forever. Whatever they're doing is because of something that you are doing or allowing or permitting or accepting. So like freaking out on the team because you're not having a good month is not going to do the job, right? And hey, we all struggle with this, okay? So I got two guys in the studio with me today. There are days where we have come into the studio and things were not set up exactly the way that I thought would have led to a productive time together. And I have handled it well, and I have handled it unwell. Okay. And right, we need a booth cam in here or something so you can get them just like nodding along with this, but that'd be kind of funny. So like, and here's the thing, not handling it well looks like this. Looks like me sitting here in front of the camera. We probably have like hours at this point of of video of me basically doing this, just saying like, this is stupid. I can't believe, like, it's not helpful. Right. But like about a month or two ago, similar thing happened. It was like, hey, let's just hold off for a second. Let's get everybody who's involved. Let's get together. Clearly, I haven't communicated correctly what it actually takes to be able to come in here and do 17 videos in an effective way where I get the best output. They know where things are going. Everybody who needs something from me is getting it in like a timely manner, right? And it's like, okay, great. Let's just have the conversation about it. Let's figure out where we have the misalignment, because clearly, like, I'm a big part of it, right? And trying to at least take that position. Okay. That is productive. The other version is not productive, right? You just have to be willing to spend that time. Okay. All right. So wrath, not helpful. Just not. All right. And then lastly is lust. So lust it's very interesting. This is like you have it. It's like the shiny new thing that distracts you from what you have. Right. So technology oftentimes can be this thing that you lust after, right? It's like, man, I want that, but it's not mine. Right. Obviously there's plenty of examples of this that have nothing to do with your practice, right? Typically when you hear about people ruining their lives, this is a great one that, right, going back to the men example versus women, right? I think men also have a bigger issue with this one than women do, but certainly shows up in both. This is, everything's wrong with what I have. I want what you have, right? It's because it's funny, envy and lust are kind of like the same, but they're not. So like if I were to look up, so the dictionary definition, okay, so let's do this, live action. Let's find out what the difference is, okay? What is the difference between lust and envy? Okay. According to ChatGPT. Okay, yeah. Envy is a painful feeling that someone else has something that you want. Okay. So jealousy is envy, right? So what did we say? Envy is wishing you had the patience somebody else had. Lust is an intense desire to possess or experience something, satisfying your own craving or pleasure. Okay. So, what can you lust for? You can lust for the new technology. You can lust for the AI solution that's going to solve all of your problems overnight. But guess what it doesn't solve? The root issue. The root issue that the system is wrong, or the root issue that there was actually no goal at the beginning of the month. The root issue that even if you were to put that in place, you're still so far behind because we're like just being lazy about how we actually engage the team to provide the best service for the patients. Okay. To do the things that are important that you have to do in a repetitive manner, right? Over and over and over and over and over and over and over again, because we're in a people business and people require repetition to remember. And in order for them to remember, they have to have emotional ties. And so like those are the things that you want to be focusing on right now. What's the goal for September? Okay. Break that down every week, every day. What's already on the schedule? Okay. And what is the gap between where we are, where we want to be, and are we consistently in a daily fashion pursuing those? So if you can do those things, you can identify and avoid or, run away from as fast as possible the 7 deadly sins in your practice in September, then you will have a good September, and you might not become victim to the low productivity month that it is for many. So that's all I have for you today. I encourage you to go do those things. If there's anything we can do to help you in that process, right, give our office a call, 770, I was about to give my cell phone number, 770-518-7575. Happy to help you out with anything that we can. Otherwise, tune in next week for an interview with Dr. Bill Dorfman. Super excited about that one. I think you're going to get a lot of really good things out of there, from somebody who has built literally $1 billion company and sold it, but also is still a practicing dentist. So if you think you got a lot going on in your life, and it's a lot, right? There's some really, really insightful things in there that I hope you all enjoy. So that's all I got. We'll see you next time.